What's up, everybody? Renfill here, back again for another episode of Mondays in Middle-earth as we continue our read-through of the Silmarillion. We started this series off with The Hobbit a year and a half ago, a little more than that, I think now. We went through and we read the entirety of The Lord of the Rings, starting with The Fellowship, continuing on with The Two Towers, ending with Return of the King and the Appendices. And we have since spent the last, I want to say, couple of months now. We've been going through the Silmarillion, not quite as frequently as we did the Lord of the Rings books. Those we were doing pretty regularly every single week. Here, I've been trying to do every single week, but occasionally it gets away from me, so they might be in more infrequent. But generally, as a general rule, we launch these on Mondays. We try to do weekly episodes. But the Silmarillion is a lot harder to get through than the novels were because this is not in a novel format. So a lot of times I'm kind of stumbling for ways to make this all cohesive, but hopefully it all comes together by the time we're done with it. If you do like the way this is presented today, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. If you've never seen one of these, it's pretty simple. Most of this was done just to re-educate myself with the Silmarillion and the Lord of the Rings because I hadn't read these books in 20 plus years. I was in my late teens the last time I read all these. And I've loved Lord of the Rings. I used to read it annually, and then I just in the late 2000s, once the movies came out, I kind of just stopped reading the books and I started watching the movies every year because I loved Peter Jackson's extended editions. And then flash forward to the Rings of Power coming out, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but it still inspired me to want to do a deeper dive into all things Tolkien, and that's how this series was born. So without further ado, we're actually on the part of the book here. I think we just finished up with the Quintus Silmarillion last time, and this one is the chapter's called Of Aulë and Yavanna, and I have no idea if this is going to be one episode or multiples. We just kind of go until I feel like we have a natural stopping point. So we're getting into this at the beginning. I remember I did the history of the dwarves of Middle Earth. I did 2 episodes maybe, and then we did the dwarves of the First Age episodes like a year and a half ago maybe. Um, so I remember some of this because I was doing some research on that. But it says here, in the beginning it was said that Aule made the dwarves in the darkness of Middle Earth because he wanted, it's like this thing where he knew that the children of Iluvatar were coming, but he wanted his own. He wanted something that was unique to him. Um, people who were like learners, like he was, who always, looking for something to understand. So he wanted to teach his lore and craft to them. And it says here, he was unwilling to await the fulfillment of the designs of Iluvatar. He was impatient to bring about life and to see more on Middle Earth. It says here, he made the dwarves even as they still are, because the forms of the children who were to come were unclear to his mind, and because the power of Melkor was over the earth, he wished that they would be strong and unyielding, which dwarves are. However, fearing that the other Valar might blame his work, he did all of this in secret. He created the dwarves in secret, making the first 7 fathers of the dwarves in a hall under the mountains of Middle Earth. Now, this is all covered in that other episode. However, Papa Iluvatar knew what was up. And just as Aule was starting to instruct his new creations on how to use speech, here comes Papa Iluvatar knocking, and Aule's like, "Oh, snap. Why have you done this?" Literally, he says, "Why hast thou done this? Why dost thou attempt a thing which thou knowest is beyond thy power and thy authority?" Essentially, he's just saying, look, man, you didn't have the right to do this. I didn't give you the authority to do this. Yeah, I think that you're in deep doo-doo. Aule does respond and say, look, man, I wasn't looking for lordship. I don't desire to be a master of things. I just wanted things other than I am to love and to teach. I also want them to perceive the beauty of Ea, which thou hast created in Arda for many things that might rejoice in it. In my impatience I have fallen into folly. Yet the making of things is in my heart for my making by thee. Ha ha ha! So it's your fault, Dad. You put this thing in me. You made me desire to do this. Okay, it says here, this is a very important note here where he says, the making of things is in my heart for my own making by thee, and the child of little understanding that makes a play of the deeds of his father may do so without thought of mockery. But because he is the son of his father, Um, why are you going to be angry with me forever? As a child to his father, I'm offering you these creations of mine. Do with them what you will, but I would rather that you didn't destroy them. It says Aule took up a great hammer to smite the dwarves and wept, and in this moment Iluvatar had compassion. Fine, I'll take him. um, Aule is happy that his dad is doing this, his creator, giving thanks to him. Iluvatar says, however, basically, essentially here, I'm not gonna amend your handiwork other than one thing. They shall not cumber for the firstborn because that's my design. So your impatience shall not be rewarded in that manner. So they're gonna sleep until that time, no matter how long it might be. However, when that time comes, I will be the one to waken them, and they can be as your children. But know that strife shall arise between your children and my children, even though these are the children of my adoption. The others are the children of my choice. So he's allowing him to get away with it, but also telling him there's going to be repercussions for this down the road. Aule then took the seven fathers of the dwarves and laid them to rest in far sundered places, and then returned to Valinor and waited for the years to lengthen. There's a fascinating backstory in where all the dwarves were placed, and I think the dwarves to me are one of the more fascinating of the races of Middle Earth because they were kind of like this thing that wasn't meant to be, and then they became something greater than that. Really cool. Important here about how the fact that since they were made during the height of Melkor's power, Aule made the dwarves extremely durable, stone hard, stubborn, fast in friendship and in enmity. They can suffer toil and hunger and hurt of body more heartily than any other speaking peoples, and they live a long, long life, far beyond the span of men, but not immortal like the elves. It says here, though, it was held among the elves in Middle Earth that the dwarves actually returned to the earth and stone, excuse me, for which they were made, even though the dwarves don't believe that themselves. Huh. That's interesting. The dwarves say that Aule, the maker, whom they call Mahal, gathers them to Mandos in a hall set apart and declares to their fathers of old that Iluvatar will hallow them and give them a place among the children in the end. Also, they say that the seven fathers of the dwarves return to live again in their own kin. This is the reincarnation myth of the dwarves, which is kind of one of the controversies of the Rings of Power, is because, when you dive into some of the additional texts, you see that they believe that they're, Durin is reborn. All the fathers are reborn into their, you know, and that was one of the things the Rings of Power kind of played around with, was the fact that there was two Durins at the same time, the father and the son, and that technically shouldn't have been the case if they believe in reincarnation, but people have different interpretations of things, of course. While Aule did keep his work secret from the other Valar, he eventually spoke his mind to Yavanna. And Yavanna was the one who said, "J.r.r. is merciful. I see now that your heart is happy, it rejoices," it says, "because thou hast received not only forgiveness, but bounty. Yet because you hid this thought from me until you completed it, the children will have little love for the things of my love. They will love first the things made by their own hands, as doth their father. They will delve the earth, and the things that grow and live upon the earth they will not heed. Many a tree shall feel the bite of their iron without pity. So hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." She's feeling very vindictive right now because her hubby didn't include her in the planning process, and rightfully so. Um, Quick commercial break, everyone, to give a shout out to our first official guild officer, Babylonia, as well as all of the guild champions, and of course, all of the members who help keep me on the air full time. To join as a member, simply click that join button below and pick your tier, but you can also support with super chats on any live stream or premiere, or super thanks on any upload or YouTube short. Don't forget the Discord. Let's get back to the video. So at the end of their conversation, Yavanna basically says she was not appeased, but instead grieved in her heart, fearing what might be done upon Middle Earth in days to come. Went before Manwë at that point. Did not betray her husband, but she did say, "Hey, my king, is it true, like Aule has said to me, that the children, when they come, are going to have dominion over all the things that I've created?" Because she's all about the trees and the plants and everything else, um, to do with as they will. And Manwë says, "This is true, but why are you asking this?" And she's silent for a little bit, and finally answers, "Because my heart is anxious, thinking of the days to come. My works are dear to me. Isn't it enough that Melkor has marred so many of my creations?" This is a very important. She's feeling very upset right now. So she says, "Shall nothing that I have devised be free from the dominion of others?" Everything I've created is being taken away from me and done with as it would be with other, that's not the correct way to say that. All of her things are taken away from her and other people are doing what they want. And she's not being able to actually do anything with their things. So she's feeling very upset at the moment. And Manwë responds, "Well, out of all of your things that you've created, do what do you hold the dearest here?" And she answers and says, "Well, everything." That's the old age old question of which of your children do you love the most. And she's like, "Well, everything has its worth. The Kelvar cannot flee or defend themselves, whereas the Olvar that grow cannot. And among these I hold trees dear. They grow over long periods of time, but they fall very quickly at the felling. And unless they pay," she says, "unless they pay toll with fruit, they are little mourned in their passing." So if they're just a fruitless tree, no one cares about them. So she says, "Would that trees might speak on behalf of all things that have roots and punish those that wrong them." And Manwë's like, that's a strange thought. "And yet it was in the song," she replies. So while you were busy and up in the heavens with Ulmo, building your clouds and taking care of the rains, I lifted up the trees to receive them and sang to Iluvatar amidst the wind and the rain. So this puts Manwë into a state of silence as he contemplates, and this seed of thought that she put in him grew and grew until Iluvatar noticed it. So I think this is about the Ents, if I'm not mistaken. Basically, Manwë has this contemplation moment, and he's meditating, and he eventually hears the song. And in the song, it was kind of remote, but he says he saw that all was upheld by the hand of Iluvatar. And he basically comes back down to Yavanna and says, as she's sitting beneath the two trees, says, "Arrow has spoken," and doesn't he, does he think, do they think that I don't hear all of my children's thoughts? But he says, when my children awake, the thoughts of Yavanna will also awake, and will summon spirits from afar, and they will go among the Kelvar and the Olvar. Some will dwell within and be held in reverence. Just anger they have, and that will be feared. It says, for a time, while the firstborn are in their power, and while the second born are young. But did thy thought and mind meet also when we took wing together like great birds? So that also shall come to be by the heed. Before the children awake, there shall go forth with wings like the wind, the eagles. So I think they're talking about the creation of the Ents and the first eagles, lords of the west. So she says, "High shall climb the trees of Kementari, that the eagles of the house of the king, eagles of the king, the house therein." But Manwë says, "No, only the trees of Aule shall be tall enough." I'm guessing he means mountains by that. "The eagles shall house there in the mountains, but hear the voices of those who call upon us, and in the forest shall walk the shepherds of the trees." Huh. So they part for a time. She returns to Aule, and she tells him, "Arrow is bountiful. Let your children beware, hackers of trees, for now there will walk a power in the forest whose wraths they will arouse at their peril." And Aule responds, "Nevertheless, they will have need of wood," and continues on with his smith work. And that actually ends chapter 2. That worked really well. Next part's going to be of the coming of the elves and the captivity of Melkor. So this is probably going to be getting into territory that we're going to be seeing in Rings of Power Season 2. So it's going to be interesting to see how they adapt that. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update, everybody. Let me know your comments, thoughts down below. I am not an expert in this, so if you've got additional knowledge, let me know. See you next week.